let me introduce my guest, Anthony Bevilacqua. Anthony, how are you today, sir?
Hey, Skip. This is my first time going live like this. I have a podcast on New York Muscle Radio, and we usually do Skype calls like this all the time. This is how I interview people, but now this is actually live. So technology, man, I'm a little bit behind the times here.
Yeah, no. Hey, as long as you get on, doesn't matter if you're behind the times. It's about mastering the times. Why don't you, maybe more people are coming line here. Maybe they can open up another browser. Let's make sure they get into your circles. Give them that website address again right now, right from the start. So you guys can head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com.
If you guys I'll give you guys a free 12-week program right now. So go ahead on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/getjacked, JAKKED. It's a free 12-week program. It's for men and women. So there's a link for either one of you there. And that's a free workout program. So just for listening and coming on here and being a loyal viewer of Skips and listening to my story, you get a free program. Look at that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You're going to love Anthony's energy. And if you've been hanging around me enough, you know that the people who I bring to you, I mean, they bring something special to the table. So if I'm bringing this young man to you, there must be a reason. If you like me, you're gonna love Anthony. All right. So you want to see what he's all about. So make sure you go to that website, either it's now, bookmark, or whatever. Get that free program and start your journey listening to his podcast. Because if you like this type of information, you're going to love Anthony.
I think my favorite podcast, though, was episode 30, which was way back in September when we actually had Skip LaCour on. That was probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. You know, I talked about you this morning during the Jeff Willett interview that was just mentioned. And I know you're a big fan of Jeff, and I know you had Jeff on your podcast before.
Yeah, we did.
Right. And, but I talked about you this morning during that interview where I talked about, I was listening to your podcast, right? And then I stumbled across, actually, I have to tell you how this all came about. Someone who was like new to my tribe, maybe through my live broadcast, he was new to me, hadn't been around the bodybuilding a long time. And somehow he stumbled into your podcast and he goes, and you did a comment, and he said, yeah, I heard about you on this other podcast. And I said, I know that guy. I just started visiting his page, right? I go, oh, who was that? What was that about? And he sent me the link to your podcast, and I listened to it. And this is what I mentioned, is that you were talking about training and all the different training strategies and finding one that's best for you. And then you went on to talk about, it's really your mindset that really is going to make the difference. And then you said, hey, I don't want to get all Skip LaCour on here, right? And I caught that. I thought that was funny that I'm now a meme, right? There's a colloquialism about the way I go about it, right? So I thought that was funny, right? So,
been listening to you for a while, they know already that you're passionate, and they know when it comes to mindset, that's the key. I mean, I grew up on Max OT. It's not like I didn't, so I know everything.
Right.
I even asked you this actually in one of the videos you posted. We talked about you used to slap your chest as a kind of a get yourself ready for the set. So that's all mental stuff. Right. So anytime anything comes up ever mental, it's Skip LaCour to me.
Right. Well, getting to that point, I know we have a lot of fitness people here to some level, right? But the interesting about that comment and getting all Skip LaCour is that sometimes we in the fitness on our pursuit, we want things to be black and white. We're willing to do the work, but just tell me exactly what to do. And there are so many fitness experts out there that they're so zealous that their way is the only way. And so you get people who are brand new into training, and they watch a great video, they connect with somebody like you or me, and then somebody else has a little bit more influential and persuasive, and they just got going, and now they're uncertain. And then they go to the next one, they're uncertain. Then they're uncertain. They just want it black and white. And there are so many fitness experts out there who are so willing to try to convince you that it's black and white, and their way is the right way. And I try to tell my tribe, look, they're just guys with their strengths and their weaknesses, just like you and me. And by coming across that way, it's more about them than it is the training strategy. You know what I'm talking about there?
Of course.
Right, right. Well, let me tell you why, guys, why I wanted to have Anthony and interview him, because I think we can all learn from this young man in a lot of ways, because we all have dreams, we all have passions, and we all have fears, right? So, and we became friends on Facebook about a year and a half ago. That was after he interviewed me, and I was so impressed with him. So I brought him on one of my podcasts at that time, and this was before this technology, and so it was just a podcast, audio only. And the day that I interviewed Anthony, he just got fired from his job, his passion as a personal trainer. That he was the standout. I think he led all the other personal trainers, the number one personal trainer at a gym. He worked there for quite a long time. That was his sense of certainty. That was his career. He did well. He has a family, he has a daughter, and he got fired. And the day I talked to him was the day he got fired, right? And first of all, if you were to listen to that podcast, I should link that eventually. I mean, he was actually kind of poised and calm for just getting fired from his sense of security with the family to take care of. But then he went to work, and it hasn't been an easy journey. He chased his passion. He stepped it up a few notches, and I think that's a great story, because there's a little bit of that in all of us. So why don't you go back to that time, tell me how many years you worked there, tell me what you were doing, and the whole story behind that, Anthony.
Well, yeah, actually, it was funny because we had our interview booked prior to this happening. So it was like the day it happened, and I said, I don't know if I have the head to do this, to record this podcast right now. But I said, the show must go on. So I said, I have to have Skip on, and it was just kind of meant to have you on. We spoke after this, after the podcast initially, and you gave me a lot of good advice. So I have to tip my hat to you, because I think you started the spiral in the right direction for me. But basically, I was at that gym for probably about 11 years. I was there. I started as a trainer. I walked in there when I was 18 years old. And as soon as I got my certification, I walked in. I got hired on the spot, became a personal trainer, started from the bottom, built up a huge clientele base. And then I did so well, the facility bumped me up to manager. So I was in charge of the trainers, and I made good money. And but of course, you start to realize as a personal trainer, your time is very limited, and you can only make a certain amount of money based on the amount of hours you work. And I was growing up at the time. I was got engaged, got married, so you need money. So I started an online business. I had an online training business at the time. Just started up the website, and the gym had an issue with that. Apparently, they claimed that it took away from them, which I never stole any clients. I like to lead myself on integrity, and I do not steal. I never stole $1 from the gym. And there's a lot of trainers that when they work at a gym, you're making little money. It's very tempting to take money that the clients give you or offer you, and put in your pocket.
Oh, I see. Because they have that special connection with you, and they want to help you out, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I never did anything like that. Whatever. I started the online business, was making a little bit of money. It was nothing to, sing about. It wasn't like millions I was making, but I was making a little bit of pocket money.
So and you loved what you did. I mean, that's what you were born to do. You lived it, breathed it, and you loved helping other people.
Of course. I mean, that aside, obviously I have a degree in nutrition, so this is what I love. This is what I do. I always knew I wanted to help people. I just knew that being a doctor wasn't that road for me, and I knew I wanted to help people in a positive way. So fitness just seemed to fit in, and I was passionate about changing my body, so I knew I could help so many people change theirs. So fast forward now, the gym doesn't like that I have a website. They give me an ultimatum and say, either you stay or you go. And I kind of I beat around the bush a little bit, and I said, I don't want to give up what I have online. I want to build something else. I can't be a slave to them forever. So I told them no. And they told me to walk. And at the time, I have a house. My daughter was just born. She was actually about a year old. And I remember, walking out of the gym like, what the hell just happened? Now I literally went from making, 6 figures to 0 or in 2 minutes. I'm like, what am I going to do? They made me sign a non-compete also right before I left. So it was like they planned this whole thing out. For me, it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So this, again, we had you booked for the podcast. I'm like, do I have the head for this right now? And that was actually a good episode. And I really should go back and listen to that now, because I'm curious the state of mind I was in when that was going on. And Yeah. Fast forward to today, I built a 6-figure business at home. I have a private facility that I built out in my home gym, my garage. I built out a whole facility here. Again, like I said, 6-figure business. Now I have the podcast, which actually took off. I guess being away from the gym allowed me to focus my passion on that.
Well, we talked about that, maybe some of the reasons why when you don't have a security blanket, why the podcast took off, whereas before anyway. And also, I love your gym setup, right? Maybe you can pick up your computer and scan them and let them see that too before we log off today. But
I'll pan it around in a second. But yeah, you got the. I don't know. Skip Lacour's not up here though. He got to autograph a picture and send it to me, and I'll get him up here.
I will.
You heard that, guys. So hold him to it.
Yeah, my phrase is, "I will not let you down when I say something, and I'll do it." So I'd be honored to be in your gym. I follow you on your Facebook page. I saw your 515-pound squat the other day, right? You got a lot of energy, as people can probably see. But, it's interesting. I mean, I don't remember the specifics, but my initial feeling was you were very poised for someone who just left his job, and you should be commended for that. I guess you might, would you agree that there are a lot of people like you who love fitness? They're passionate about helping other people. They have this dream of being their own boss someday. But it's a big fear to take that jump, right? How long did you think about doing that before you were forced to do it, right? And was it a little bit of a relief that they forced you to do what you always wanted to do? Tell me what that
definitely was.
That was like.
Again, when you work for someone else, you're just basically working to build their dream and not your own. And I always knew that for me, I didn't want to see my whole life being under this one gym and in this one place. I just knew it was something more for me. So it was like, I honestly have to say for about 3 years, I toyed with the idea of leaving. But then it was always like, how am I going to leave? What am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? I can't just pick up and go. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And it was, and every day I was so miserable working there. I didn't like the people I worked with. The only thing that kept me there, Skip, the honest truth, was my clients. I had great clients there, a lot of which who have stayed in touch with me since then. They've become like family to me. So for me, that was the only reason why I was there. And that was the only reason why I did what I did anyway, was because of my clients and the clientele that I had. I'm so grateful for them even to this day. But I prayed almost every day, like, oh, it's got to get better. It's got to get better. And it just wasn't. So it was really to the point of, especially when it was happening, that I kind of knew it was going to happen already. Like I had a feeling that it was going to happen.
Okay.
I was fed up with it. I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, I got to do something. And I just never was able to take that leap. So, the higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, kind of gave me the push I needed, I guess, to go in the right direction.
Well, so we'll get back to all the great stuff where you are now. But, look, there are people watching that are, happy for you. They've heard these stories before. But, man, when you're in the situation, it's tough, right?
Big time.
Well, tell me about the sleepless nights and until you brought it back up, right? Because people know about, I tell them about my story where I quit my safe and secure job. And, it was tough being there when you're destined for more, but it isn't like it was easy once you actually quit your job. Let them know, right? Sometimes on the internet, people act like, here I am. Isn't this great? And it isn't like they're necessarily posing or pretending. It's just that once they're through the pain, they pushed it away. And people need to understand what they have to go through. Connect back, all right? Let's not skip through that. Tell me about the sleepless nights. Tell me about you wanting to go back and ask for your job back or get a job at the car wash or whatever. Tell me about the challenging part of this last year and a half.
Well, being an entrepreneur, as you know, you kind of, it's always a sleepless night, I think. I think you're always thinking of the next best thing to do and the next way to put something new out there, or, especially when you're as passionate as me and you, Skip, you're always trying to, find something better and get your word out there and really help as many people as possible. So I think that kind of happens every day. But relating back to what you said, yeah, definitely sleepless nights. I mean, there's the first week I probably didn't sleep at all. But I was out there, so I got fired, I think like on a Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever it was. Wednesday, I took the day. I called all my old clients. I let them know all what happened. And Thursday, I found one or two clients to train. Like I kept myself busy. I just kept going. And I think that was the key. I didn't look back. I just kept taking one step forward until I was able to build up enough business. But yeah, so many sleepless nights. I mean, there was times I went at one point I was like, what am I going to do? You know, do I get a regular job? Do I just go get a job? I actually went to like one of these chain gyms, but one of the ones that's like kind of like CrossFit, but not CrossFit. I don't know, one of these cardio gyms. And I was like debating on taking the job. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, it's just not for me. My heart wasn't in it. I said, you know what? I'm suffering now. I'll just keep suffering. You know, I'd rather just keep building on what I'm going to build instead of building someone else's dream. I'm done. I'm never going to work for anyone else ever again. And that's kind of held me together. And I just said, I got to just keep doing this. And I just, like I said, one client at a time, one day at a time. And before I knew it, I built up a 6-figure business again. So
Right. Tell me about those sleepless nights that, you know, a lot of times we want to avoid them, but there's a sense of resourcefulness and grittiness that you will never tap into until you have to, as long as you have, you know, the job to take care of you. I mean, tell me how you came alive and how, you know, maybe you didn't work a few more hours, but you all of a sudden access more creativity. You found you found a way to relate to people or resources in a way you never had before because you never had to. Talk about what happens when your back is against the wall. And then I want to. There's a lot of people who are like you, Anthony, that have the safe and secure job. They have a dream, and it's just too much to, you know, they wish in some ways probably that someone pushed them out, so they had to do it, but they're not in that position. What advice can give one about what you turned into, the man you became because you had to? And did you notice a gigantic difference? You talk about that.
Yeah, I think when your back's against the wall and you have no choice but to do what you got to. And like I said, my daughter was a baby at the time, 1 year old. And I'll never forget the times just thinking like, I want to give this kid more than I have ever had. How am I going to do that with nothing? And you just you find a way inside of you. It's like something inside of you just comes alive and you say, okay, you know, I guess it's a parenting instinct, I guess. And you just put yourself out there. You don't get scared anymore to do things. You ask questions you normally wouldn't have asked before. You ask advice from people. You know, you're not afraid to get outside the box because you have to. You have no choice. You know, so at that point, you're almost pushed to doing things. I'll never forget too. I think it was the second day of unemployment. I guess my new life, whatever you want to call it. I went to the library and I sat in the library for about 4 hours and I just skimmed through dozens of books, just looking for inspiration, something. You know, maybe I'll start a dog walking business. Like maybe I'll do this. Like just researching all different kinds of stuff because I had to. I had no choice. So you kind of do things instinctively almost, and everything just kind of ends up working out. You know, it's scary when I look back at it now. But yeah, at the time, like I said, I wasn't really focused on I'm such a failure. It was more like, what am I going to do now?
Right.
So I didn't really think too much about that end of it. But when your back's against the wall, you do amazing things. And when you listen to that inner you, man, amazing things happen.
Well, what advice could you give them? They've heard that before, and they can feel your energy, and they're so probably happy it worked out for you. But there are situations different. Things don't always work out. They know those horror stories. What can you say about, you know, if someone doesn't push you out, how can you jump out? I mean, you got any advice or insight for those guys?
Every situation is going to be a little bit different. Obviously, you want to make sure you have money saved before you just basically jump out. You know, you don't want to take that leap without having a security blanket. Obviously, you got to have something, especially if you have responsibilities. If you're young and you live at home with your parents, you know, maybe then you could take that jump. But if you're on your own, you have a family, you can't be irresponsible and just say, oh, I'm unhappy, I'm going to quit my job. You know, save up some money, save up 6 months of backup money just in case, and then take that leap, take that risk, because you know what? And I'm turning 30 on the 30th. So as we're recording this, it's May 11th. May 30th, I'm turning 30. Time does not stop for anybody. There's only 24 hours in a day. You have to make sure you take advantage of those 24 hours. So I wish, and honestly, when I was 18 years old and I became a trainer, I started working in the gym, I started getting up some clients, I had some money saved and I said, I think I'm going to open up a gym. I was this close to opening it up and I chickened out. And I kick myself every day that I didn't take that risk then because I could have taken the risk then. It's very hard for me to take that risk now. I mean, I took the risk now, obviously, but if I had that similar of a dream, it would be very hard for me to take that risk now because of what's going on. So if you have the opportunity to do it, make sure you're smart about it. Don't just randomly say, oh, I'm unhappy, I'm going to quit. Go ahead and do it, but just make sure you have that, like I said, that security. So this way, if something does happen, you have some type of a backup because you always got to have a backup plan.
Well, security is relative, right? Everybody has
you know what I mean.
thresholds. Yeah, you're right. How about this? I'll ask your opinion on this question because I think that whether someone's a personal trainer or not, or whatever their story is, I think everybody can kind of relate to this. And you've heard the story, make sure you have your ducks all lined up. Is there ever a day when all your ducks are going to be lined up when you're 100% certain?
No. I think the simple answer to that is no. Like I said earlier, when you're passionate about something and you want to make a difference, one of the people who actually inspire me a lot is Walt Disney. Walt Disney created a lot of different things. And, my daughter watches Snow White now, and that was his first, real work of art, his first masterpiece. And Walt Disney, I think, is dead now 60 years, something like that. And he's still around, he's still making an impact. I want to make that kind of an impact. And that's something that drives me forward every day to try to just think of new things to be the Walt Disney of fitness almost. But that's something that inspires me. So I think he never had his ducks in order. But then again, look at what he did. Right.
No, and it's interesting because I follow your Facebook page and I bet you've been down to Disney World at least 2 or 3 times in the last year. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. My wife is a Disney-holic.
Okay. All right. So I can see how he has that impact. I kind of said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it, right? So I'm going to tell you guys a funny story. So I had a scheduling error, right? And I thought this interview was going to be like 23 hours from now, right? And so Anthony kind of contacted me. It was the scheduled time, and like I said, I already did an interview, so in my head, this was supposed to be tomorrow. And so we got to this, we tested out the technology here, and we had an amazing conversation. I mean, for how long did we talk about? An hour and a half. Yeah. And we talked about you guys would have loved to have heard that conversation. It was raw. It was honest about entrepreneurship. I was talking to him like my long lost son, giving him entrepreneurial advice and motivational advice of everything we're talking about. And then it was, like I said, you would have loved to have heard that conversation. Maybe we can recapture some of it. And your Walt Disney story reminded me of that. And I want to share that story from that conversation, Anthony. But it was funny. It said, okay, so Anthony, I'll talk to you in about 23 hours from now. He goes, Skip, we were supposed to do that today. I go, really? Right? So I said, well, let's take a 5-minute break. It would have been great to have all that on there, but let's just jump on there. So I wanted to make sure we did this for you guys, right? But from that conversation, we talked about this. If you are trying to make your impact on the world, whether it's the internet or you're doing it in person, and I was giving my impression. I don't claim to know everything. I'm continually trying to crack the codes at higher and higher levels. But one thing that we talked about, Anthony, I wanted you to talk about this too, is that, everybody can have effective strategies, right? And everybody believes their strategy is the best strategy. And that's okay. But you have to move people emotionally. You have to be able to influence and persuade, have that little something about you that makes you stick out. And there are plenty of strategies that can work. So locking down and, just focusing on, well, I'm the best, people should come to me. I mean, I think if you really want to do your mission in life, you got to get off that you have the best strategy. Become that person like Walt Disney that 60 years after his death that has Anthony's wife so inspired to take trips down, because he's in New York, so he goes down to Florida, right? And he's talking about that passion. We were talking about a very rare TV show that I watched that if I told you what it was, you'd say, wow, that's interesting. But this show just moves me. It's to me, for whatever reasons. And I was watching it on a, recorded version before Anthony came up, and then I came back upstairs. So I don't watch it while it's actually live.
Is that what you were watching during the break, man?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what took you so long.
But I was just saying is that this is so well written. It has me moved, right? And I said, that's what I need to do for you guys. I got to tap into that where I move. Forget about the strat. Well, don't forget. Become better and better what you do. Come through with everything you say. Give them the effective strategies, but you got to touch people's hearts. And Anthony had, and I had the conversation about finding your voice. You're going to run into it. If you just do it long enough, you'll start A/B testing. You know what resonates. And then you become a person who has like 45 things that are unique to you. That you say in just the perfect way, with the perfect pitch, with the perfect delivery. And that's what you get known for. That's when people say, maybe you've heard, if this sounds interesting to you, you want to go down this path about finding your voice. That's really what it is. But I'll tell you, being unique, touching people emotionally, get more on that and less on the strategies. Again, deliver amazing strategies. But if you want to make it big, you got to touch people's heart and souls. And
I'm actually going to cut you off a little bit, Skip, because I want to just add to your point. Okay. I think you have to add, basically to what you're saying, you have to find the medium that works for you too. I mean, before, starting a podcast, I had a YouTube channel. I tried that. It just wasn't panning out right for me. I tried, the Instagram thing and putting up, a post every day, trying Facebook ads, trying all these different things. And the medium that just seemed to be, I felt really comfortable in, and I felt that I could be really, really passionate in, was speaking. Who knew it was the podcast? It was just one of those things that I tried, stumbled upon, and it worked so well for me. And we have well over 600,000 downloads on the podcast. My goal is to get to 1 million before the end of the year. So,
awesome.
We're moving in the direction. And if you would have told me a year ago that the podcast was going to be where it is, I would have never believed you. So to echo what you said, I agree, find 100%, be passionate, find that passion for you, but find the medium that works for you to deliver it. If you're not comfortable on camera like me and Skip are, then maybe that's not the angle for you. Maybe, an email might be it, or, a Facebook post, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great point. And I say finding your voice, but it could just be finding the way you communicate best. I think that's a great point. So Anthony, he's a really passionate member of our tribe here. And I know Anthony, he's going to be a passionate member of yours too, Anthony. So Anthony says, going to the library is telling. It tells me Anthony was feeding his mind, developing and maintaining a mindset that served him well. It explains why he didn't mentally cave in. All right. That's
the other thing too. I've read so many more books now that I've been self-employed, I guess, the entrepreneur route. I've read so many more books, and I've learned so much just from reading. And I actually find I get inspired by listening to other people's stories. Steve Jobs, I've read his book several times. Michael Jordan's story, Walt Disney's books, I've read, every single one that I can get my hands on. Because it seems to me when these people create these things that are, again, neither one of them, and none of those guys are here, and their items are still, think about your iPhone. We all use iPhones and technology. It's all one person's idea. Right. It's insane. So to me, that's what drives me. I want to be that in fitness.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's interesting. Steve Jobs, one concept that inspires me is that, and you see this a lot, and hopefully you guys will find this helpful, is that the message that I take from Steve Jobs, everything of his life, is that he didn't go around and say, hey, what do you guys want? What do you guys want? Mm-hmm. Right? Because a true leader has to anticipate what people want that nobody's thought of, and people want to go to the new thing he created. That's called innovation, and you can't always do it. Because if you ask somebody back when, you had, just the big old phones, most guys don't even remember that, or whatever, the first phones, and said, hey, what do you think you want in a phone? Well, their brains, they don't think about that. They need you to lead them. They would tell you, maybe just a souped up version of that archaic model. It's a leader that can future pace, that can provide what people want, right? So if it's fitness or whatever your leadership is, it's a new brand that they've never thought of. that they're not going to be able to tell you that's what they want. You got to do it and draw them, and then they'll know they want it once you have it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. That was one of his things that he said. Like you said, he didn't give them what he thought they wanted. He gave them what they needed.
Right. So Tom Merck, do you know who that is? He says, Art Bell.
That's one of my clients. What's up, Tom?
Yeah. All right. And so Anthony says, love this story. He posted this a while ago when you were talking about your story. Anthony loves your story, Anthony. And then
love the name.
And Anthony also says, awesome testimony, Anthony. I can hear Skip say the day you got fired was the day you went into hyperdrive terms of your personal development, and the pain became your fuel to propel you forward. Love the way the stories flesh out the principles I'm learning with Skip LaCour. Awesome. And let's see here. Hey, okay, this is Skip's live video. Thanks for joining. So, okay, so I guess Corey invited Ann. Hey, thanks for doing that, Corey. And hello, Ann. And then Anthony says, hey, Anthony, that's a great name you have. It means deserving praise. Did you know that?
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. But my last name, Bevilacqua, means drink water. So it's fitting for fitness, I guess.
All right. Jared, hello, Jared. Jared says, hi, Skip. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, Jared. Thanks for coming on and listening to us.
And then Corey says, that's awesome. Amen. He did that a little while ago. I think that's whether it's either, your free program or my 15-man formation steps. Why not both, right? Actually,
there you go.
Anthony says going through the 15-man formation steps for the second time, leaving it all on the floor today, exhausted and hungry for more. It is so inspiring, and you are so awesome, Skip. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for appreciating my efforts. I appreciate that. All right, guys. Keep on, interacting here. Let's make the most of this, guys. I love this. This is awesome.
So, Skip, what time is it your time right now? You're in Cali, right? So what time is it for you? It's 11:06 New York time right now.
Right. 8:06 for me. 8:06 for me.
Oh, okay, so nice. So it's still early.
Yeah, I appreciate you staying up and doing this. We got people watching, but the vast majority, this is going to be put up on YouTube, and the vast majority watch afterwards, especially this late time. I'm glad, though, that we can serve the people in other parts of the world where this is their prime time, right? So I appreciate you being here available at this time. So why don't you bring us up to speed, where you are now and your future, Anthony, because I think people, they're really interested in that, and maybe they'll be following you on your Facebook page and see how this all pans out, and you can inspire them to take the chances and go for their dreams too. Well,
it'll end up being a happy story, like Walt Disney's movies. It always ends happily ever after. But like I mentioned earlier, I built up a 6-figure business privately now on my own, so happy about that. The other thing that I'm really happy about is the podcast, because one of the things, like I said, as a trainer, I was always worried about was I was always trading my time for money, which is fine. This is what most people do in a job, but it's not the best way to make money because my schedule revolves around my clients. So therefore, if a client cancels, I don't make money, blah, blah, blah. So for me, I really wanted another asset that would make money while I sleep. And I'm sure any of you who try to make money online know exactly what I'm talking about. But I started the podcast, like I said, and the podcast has just really taken off, and it's really been able to be that vehicle for me to get out there and really reach all the people that I've been wanting to reach. I didn't know it was going to be that way. The podcast is approaching the 6-figure mark, and I can't believe just the tribe that we've built over at New York Muscle Radio. It's insane. I have people all over the world buy our products. Australia, New Zealand, all crazy different places all over the world. And like I said, the tribe, the messages that I get from people, how we've inspired them by what we say. And I can't even begin to tell you the amount of joy that alone has brought me and the amount of fulfillment that I get from that alone. Whereas before I wasn't getting that. So as far as the future goes for me, I honestly don't know. I'm going to ride this wave as long as I can. And I really don't know what my next step is going to be. This is kind of like what I'm kind of struggling with now. And I'm always upfront and honest with everyone. I tell it like it is on my podcast. I don't know what the next step for me. I'm going to be 30 this year, and that kind of freaks me out a little bit because I know I'm going to blink my eyes, and in 10 years I'm going to be 40. So I know I have to improve, and I just don't know where that avenue is going to be for me. And that's something that I'm struggling with now, that I have to figure out where I should go next.
Right. Well, I'll tell you this, with you stepping up, doing interviews like this, continue to do your podcast, getting better and better at your skills. I know you have a supplement company. You work with people. I mean, your skill set, your reading, finding inspiration, you're developing more and more skills, more and more talents, more and more abilities. It's moving you in the direction. And there's a million different ways to make life work. And the more talents you have that you appreciate and you develop, you can't help but get better. About your situation, I think of an analogy that, a car, if it's all the way from where you're on the East Coast in New York, I'm all the way in California, and just say it's night. A car doesn't have to, its headlights don't have to see all the way to California, just has to see the next 50 feet and then keep on driving. So, I could tell you with your energy, your passion, it's all going to work out awesome. I just know that about you. Let's see a couple comments here, Anthony. Joshua Michael Caloris, do you know who that is? He says, "What's up, Anthony and Skip? All we're missing is Big Pete."
Big Pete's my co-host on the podcast.
Oh, okay, all right,
yeah, he's a podcast listener. What's up, Josh? Thanks for listening, bud.
And then Tom says, "Nothing but success after 30 for you, and don't worry." Right? Well, worrying worrying without losing your poise and control. Worrying is a good thing. Like we talked about, it helps you access. As long as you don't lose control of yourself, you're not in a bad mood around the people, or you make bad decisions. There's a certain element of being worried that can serve you, right? So I think that, and speak on this too, because you work with clients who they come to you to get their body in shape. And sometimes a big challenge is that they're not in enough pain. And then maybe they put off. And then when they come to you, they're way out of shape. Now they're really in pain. Then they start working with you, right? And then they love the connection. They love the fact that they're putting more attention, and then that pain has dropped just because they're going through the motions, but they haven't lost all the weight, and they certainly haven't developed the mental habits yet. Tell me, as a very intelligent personal trainer, which I'm sure you are, how do you keep that pain that they came to you with, that got them to take action and to step up, to put some skin in the game, some money in the game, to carve out that time that they always made excuses for. And now they connect with a great guy like you get them going, and then that pain threshold drops. And then they now it's more painful to come in here and pay you, right? That balance that you got to keep as their coach. Talk about that.
It's so true. You say that. A lot of people, they come to me, they start losing weight, they start feeling good, and they're so good on the diet initially. And then, as they start getting closer and closer to their goal, there's more slip up. There's a slip up here, a little bit of cake here. It was my friend's birthday today. I had a little bit of this. And then they start seeing, I kind of don't say nothing. Actually, I let things kind of happen a little bit. And then, because I weigh all my clients, to take all their measurements every week. So you can see, based on what happened with their weigh-in, what's been going on. So I kind of won't say much. I'll talk to them a little bit. Well, you got to be careful, blah, blah, blah. And then as the weight starts creeping up on the scale, I'll say, well, I keep detailed notes of all my clients' stuff too. So I'll say, well, remember your friend's birthday here. Remember this one here. And a lot of people think like, oh, a little bit here, a little bit there. But you got to remember, there's 7 days in a week. So if it's a little bit on Monday, a little bit on Tuesday, and a lot on Friday, that's half the week bad already. So you have to have these, for me anyway, what's worked best for me was showing them the details and say, look, here's all the information here. You see what's happening? Can you connect the dots yet? You're going to end up right back where you were if you don't cut the side. And then they're like, wow. And kind of like that light bulb goes off, and then they usually get back on track. I can't say that it always happens. So, sometimes people eat to live, not live to eat.
Right. Well, I work with guys come to me, and, I don't necessarily, I don't work. I obviously have a lot of information when it comes to training or nutrition, but the men who come to me for one-on-one coaching, we'll work on a bigger vision for their life. And I found that when you have that bigger vision, you know what you want and all the reasons why. You know, training and eating becomes just something that you do because it's part of a big picture and not something that you assess at. So, you know, I don't do that route, although I help out. But usually they can take care of that stuff because we work on the big stuff. But it's that pain, pleasure balance that we all go through. And, you know, it's delicate balance because when guys come to me, I mean, they're determined. And they're not like, when I talk about pain, very rarely, if ever, are they down in the dumps, right? The pain that my clients come to me with is, they're talented, they're hardworking, they put in their time, they look around and see other men who seem to have so much more, they can't crack the code. And there's usually objectivity and perspective that they're lacking, their strategies, that they have these qualities about them that have served them well to get to this point. But a lot of times there's a lot of mental ways of thinking that will never have them break through. They're just not aware of them, right? So they come to this point that really it's going to be really tough on your own to kind of unravel what these personality defects, if we can call them that, right, in a way that just need some adjustment. Just awareness will help. They're log jammed, they're frustrated, they're in that pain, they just deserve more. They don't know why a guy who seems to work not as hard, he's not as smart, and he just has so much more. That's the pain that they're frustrated. And then we start working on it. Then they start getting it, right? Then they have this control of their life, right? The challenge that I have sometimes is that, look, you know, this is like, I know we've had an amazing 4 months and you're seeing the world totally differently. You feel better in your body. You're starting to imagine some of the chains that were there that you didn't know that were there are being taken away from you. But I'll tell you this isn't ingrained in your psyche quite yet. We got to continue doing this. But sometimes the pain that they came in with has been alleviated. But as their coach, you kind of got to keep a certain level of pain so they stay committed to finish it off, so they have it eliminated for the rest of their life and it doesn't creep back. And I'm sure as a personal trainer, you've seen people who are great, fantastic, and they go, okay, I'm done, Anthony, look at this, all this weight I lost. I know how to train. I know how to eat. Really, training and eating really wasn't the problem. And they looked amazing, and all their friends complimented them, right? And then you're, you know, at the shopping mall or, you know, at the county fair, and then they kind of see you. And they're a little embarrassed. You can tell in their body language because they gained all that weight back and more because they didn't stay long enough until it got ingrained in their psyche. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. It has to become lifestyle. I think anything you do if you're trying to be better, it has to become lifestyle. You know, I always use this analogy, and I know you yelled at me before not to use analogies, but you know, the fitness lifestyle is like brushing your teeth. You know, it's like brushing your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth, what happens? Your teeth rot. You know, so you have to brush your teeth every day, and you do it no matter what. So you have to do some type of fitness every day, whether that's dieting, whether that's doing your weight training, whether that's doing your cardio. Something has to happen every day or your body's going to rot away. So if you don't make it a lifestyle with anything, you know, whether it's trying to succeed in business or whether it's trying to succeed in, you know, some other avenue, you're never going to get there unless you make it a lifestyle. If you hate it, you're not going to do it.
Right. And then I would recommend anyone who has a personal trainer and wants a personal trainer, stay with them beyond when you think, I got this. Yeah. Now I know how to train and try to eat. I got my patterns down. Continue for another 6 or 8 months. Right. So it gets ingrained into that habit, because this isn't a logical thing. It's not facts, because you probably knew how to train and eat and what not to put in your mouth before you even started your personal training. So continue that on. So it's a lifestyle, and then the habits are with you and your pain is gone forever. Just something to think about. All right, let's see any more comments here. So let's see here. Pete says, hey, Skip or Anthony, if you ever feel self-doubt along your journey, I laugh because you don't feel self-doubt every step along the way. I think you learned how to live with it. But anyway, so that's why I kind of chuckled there. How do you determine if it's feedback you need to acknowledge and adjust, or it's best to ignore it and keep pushing forward? That is an excellent question, Pete. I'll let you attack that first, Anthony.
Flash it on the screen one more time, quick. Can you flash it on the screen so we can see it?
So basically, what's feedback that you suck and you should make adjustments.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
Keeping on, yeah.
Great question, Pete. That's Pete Kacharian. That's my co-host here, and he loves to throw all these weird questions at me all the time.
No, that's a great question.
Basically, I would say you have to you're always going to get someone that's going to give you the wrong advices, as Arnold used to say in Pumping Iron. Someone's always going to tell you something, especially if you're trying to break out of the mold and trying to do something different. I remember coming home when I first became a personal trainer, telling my mom, Ma, I'm going to make $30 an hour. Can you believe that? I'm going to make $30 an hour being a personal trainer. And she was kind of like, and I told her I had to sell clients, obviously. She's like, well, if you have to sell, just stay at your other job. That's probably not for you. So you're always going to have someone that's going to kind of give you self-doubt and kind of always going to give you bad advice, but not knowingly bad advice. So you for me, you have to always take it with a grain of sand. Sometimes someone may be telling you something and it may be good advice. You have to kind of take the advice, digest it a little bit, think about it before you act on it, and then decide if it is for you or not. Because sometimes people just say things and not knowing, my mom would never want to hurt me in any way. But, that advice would have been hurtful if I would have listened. Who knows where I'd be now?
Right. No, that's a great answer. Let me give you my answer to that, Pete, is that is someone being a hater who criticizes you because they got some problem, they're jealous of you, they want to be here, all that kind of stuff on the internet, right? Or is it legitimate feedback that if you made a 180-degree turn, did something totally different, or slight adjustments? The truth of the matter is you do not know. You really don't know. I mean, until you actually succeed, you don't know how to get there. And I think it all starts with you, all right? You have to understand what your outcome is. If you want to become the next Walt Disney or a Steve Jobs in what you do, just really change people's lives. Along the way, you want to take care of your family to the highest level. Like you say, you got to stay focused on that's what your outcome is. Because if I said to you, I'm going to rip you to shreds, I'm going to yell at you, right? I'm going to degrade you. I'm going to make you start all over again. But we had a crystal ball and you had that impact with thousands of raving fans and followers that you changed their lives, and you were making $10 million a year for your family, you would say, hey, bring it on. I want that advice, right? If you were focused on your outcome. Sometimes you have to be so focused on your outcome, so determined to get there. And at the same time, you have to be mentally and emotionally flexible and humble enough that you don't care how you get there. You don't care if you're doing it right or wrong now where it's going to hurt your feelings. You would just want to get there. All right. I don't claim to know everything about anything. And when I start with that humility, that this is just my perception of what's going on. That conversation that I said I wasn't going to talk about because it was so good that you missed with Anthony. The one thing I said a lot of times, I said, look, this is my perception of what's going on in the world. And that's when I was giving Anthony advice, right? I stay humble and open. I feel certain enough to keep on moving forward because if you're just so uncertain, you don't do anything. You got to take action. All right. But I'm so focused on my outcome that, you know what, if I get a great piece of advice from somebody, could they be a hater? I guess. Could it be great feedback? I don't know. I'm not going to let it hurt my feelings. I'm going to play it out. There's something that I'll talk about. It's called A/B testing, right? Part of the reason why you guys see me so much is because I'm always testing out the best way to come across. Because, Anthony, we talked about finding your voice. You just keep on practicing. You'll come into a rhythm. You'll know the right thing to say. You'll know what resonates. You know what suits best for you, the avenue, whether it's a podcast or live or whatever it may be. You got to hurry up and try, and be mentally, emotionally flexible and open to the answers, whether it comes from failure or success, from a hater or someone who's constructive criticism. All right. I'm always testing. And if I speed up the process, because I'm always moving forward. I had a mentor who said, fail forward fast. Well, I am the guy failing forward fast because again, I look at everything as a possible way to get me to my end result. And with that humility and that okay with doing it wrong, if it's going to lead you where you want to go, you're going to see all criticism, differently, and all failure differently, and everything like that. So the truth is you don't know. That's the beauty of this whole game. You don't know if you just keep on doing it, you're just going to end up where you are, just be 1 year down the line, or you're going to finally come through and break through to the next level. And anyone who tells you just keep on doing something that isn't working, just keep on doing it, those other people ignore it, that's not good advice either, right? But that's the beauty of this game, right? You got to love the game, right? What do you think about that, Anthony?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, being on a podcast, we get so many downloads, and people are always going to criticize everything you say. Sometimes people give you advice and they try to help you and give you advice. Sometimes they give you criticism that you may not want to hear. And, especially on YouTube, people are not afraid. Everybody has YouTube muscles and they just go around saying things. So sometimes you get these comments and you listen to them. You're like, is it really me? Like, should I change that? And you kind of think about it. And sometimes, for me, I'll never forget one time someone told me something. I don't remember what it was now because it was so long ago, but I shouldn't do this. One of the things was I cut people off on the podcast. I get so excited when I have to say something, so I always cut everyone off. And I kind of thought about it and I kind of held back so much, but I felt like, I wasn't being mean. I wasn't allowing my passion to come through. And the most important thing when I'm on the podcast is allowing me to come through. So sometimes you have to just tell people that, don't really know. You have to listen to yourself. Listen to that inner person inside you, because that thing is always right. Whatever it is, your conscience, your Jiminy Cricket, we're sitting with the Walt Disney theme here. That thing is always right. So when you listen to some of these things, take them with a grain of salt, like I said, and really just digest them before you actually start implementing them.
Yeah. No, a lot of good points. And also I would say, remember that is when you get criticism, it's not black or white. So you're just stepping on people when you talk to them, and that's part of your passion. And then, stop doing it. There could be 82 different shades of that. It's not black or white. Stay with it. I'll tell you this is that, we could talk for another hour about that particular topic. That's a great question is, I see this a lot on the internet, is just stay true to you. Just listen to your voice. I'll tell you, Anthony, like I said, we could do a whole different interview on this. I could talk about this for 3 days alone, is that some of us were challenged. We've had things that happen, and whether it's our perception growing up, about whether it's being bullied or abandonment or break of marriage, or when growing up, and we developed certain beliefs about how the world works. And they're just not going to work. Again, in our fitness industry, a certain mentality, I'm telling you this, a lot of the things you hear over and over and over again, the memes, it just be you. Look, we're all improving. There are some things that need to change, right? And you just being you is going to hit you right. You're going to be doing better than most, right? But if you really want to bust to the next level, just being you on everything, you're gonna hit a roadblock. You're gonna get to a point a ceiling that you can't break through. Where just being you is just be you in essence, and make some slight adjustments and improvements, because we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, and we have to know which ones are which. And it kind of probably goes back to that humility. I am so glad that I had coaches and mentors, and that I had failures, because I am so much different and so much happier than who I used to be years ago. And it's a continual process that never ends. I'm not a big fan of listening to instincts and continuing to do things just because you decided, especially if they're not working. So, again, I know I'm going against the grain here. I didn't mean to step on your point there, but I that's my truth, Anthony. And I think you can see that from that validity to it. You made a lot of changes in the last year and a half. Who you were a year and a half ago, this is a souped up, better version. And you're even going to be better than that even a year and a half from now. Am I right?
Of course.
Yeah. So tell us again about your website, what you have to offer, your free course. I want everybody to check you all out. So this is your time to get this group of people heading your direction, Anthony, before we sign off.
Well, Skip, thank you again for coming on, man. I appreciate it so much. It's so funny to be on the other end of the spectrum and not be the one having to ask the questions. So it's nice to actually answer them. So I guess I know how my co-host feels all the time. But thank you so much again for having me on. And guys, thank you for being such a great audience today and listening to my story. I hope I was able to inspire some of you guys. Hope I was able to push you guys to take that next level, because life is very short and it's ticking very fast. So if you have an opportunity to do something, go ahead and make sure that you take that opportunity. And if you liked what I said and you could, match with me well, head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. That's my podcast. It's everything that has to do with me. You can find any video we do, anything in fitness, we do it. We have our supplement line there. We have products, our strong grips, all these other cool fitness things for you guys to check out. But if you want a free 12-week program, and this is only for Skip's listeners, so you guys can listen to this, head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/getjacked, JAKKED, and that's our free 12-week program for men and women. So just click the appropriate one for you, and you'll get a free program. So Skip, thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it, man.
And thank you for sharing your story and your energy. And I'll tell you what, as an interviewer, a guy with your passion and your energy, it makes it easy on this. And I'm sure you make it this easy for your guests too. All right. So thank you so much, Anthony. And we're going to have to check you out and have you back on again, sharing your story as it continues to develop. All right, sir.
Thank you, Skip. Right. Yes, of course.